Thank you so much for joining me. I recently did a flip through of this Daphne's diary, which is number 2 of 2024, and I'll leave the link in the description box up here. But it's just full of hope for spring, beautiful things that you can plant to get your garden right, hints and tips, lovely recipes and crafts for Easter. And one of the crafts that they have in here is the spread called 3D. And you get a picture which shows you what it's going to be like, these 2 images which have on the reverse side a little postcard, and then you have this page which just has lots of pieces to cut out. Now for those of you that have never done 3D decoupage, you're probably thinking, well, I'm not too sure what to do with this. So I thought, let me just run through this with you so that you can actually make use of these. So I'm going to go quickly and just use my guillotine to slice this in 2 and then cut off that edge there. And then I'm going to fussy cut out all of these images so that I can show you what to do next. So, welcome back. I have now fussy cut out all my pieces, and you will see that I've got duplicates of some of them and others are just single. So the first thing that I'm going to do is just to soften the cut edges on all my pieces. So I have here my Distress ink, Tim Holtz Antique Linen, and I'm going to just loosely go around the edge. I like to use just the side of the ink pad. Maybe this one I'll just rub it. I do often use the side when I don't want too much, but it just means that where you have cut paper or card, you get rid of that very, very white edge that you normally have, and it will dry quite quickly. So I'm going to go around all of these pieces. You'll see that there's quite a lot of white here, and as I just rub this over the edge gently, trying to cover as much of that white as possible, it will subdue it. Now when I started cutting out the designs, they had a shadow that had been put in underneath each of these images, and what the Distress ink will do will be to actually replicate that feel of the shadow, but it does tie in rather nicely with the color of the fur on these little rabbits. Okay, so I'm just going to go around all of these pieces, taking my time so that I don't actually have big smudges. Now you'll see that in some of the instances, like the baskets and the bows and the roses, there are 2 of each of the designs. You don't have to use both, it's entirely up to you, but you could. You're going to go all the way around here. I used to teach 3-dimensional decoupage in South Africa, and it was really a fun class, but it could also be a bit distressing. So you basically need to find anything where you can have 2, 3 or 4 or even more layers of the same print. So you would start off with 3 or 4 pictures that are exactly the same, stick one of them down onto a piece of card so that you've got a nice base to work on, and then you would start cutting out different layers. So you would need to understand if the image that you were looking at, or the part of the image, was in the background or in the foreground, to be able to work out how you were going to layer these. And when I was teaching, it was always a challenge to get my students just to keep all the pieces in the right sequence and not throw them away with the papers, because not everybody has a visual brain and not everybody can see how it's going to work out. So in the end, we had worked out a system of containers where we could put different things in, and that actually worked quite well. But the first lesson or 2, I must say, it was a bit stressful from my point of view. Okay, so I've just got this little chicken to go around, and I just think these designs are wonderful to do at this time of the year. It's just so nice to give somebody a special card, or maybe just a little note just to say that you appreciate them, you're thinking of them at this time. I think of all the lonely people. I mean, in the community where I am, there are many people who live on their own in flats or in homes who perhaps don't have much social contact, and sometimes if you just reach out to them, it's just amazing. They are so responsive and so grateful just to have somebody that actually has an eye for them. I had a neighbor like that in South Africa who was a lovely woman, but her family didn't spend much time with her, and as a result she quite often was on her own for various things, and we used to invite her. So I'm just taking a pencil because I want to keep my tools simple so that you don't feel that you've got to have special tools. But if you have any of the embossing tools which have little wooden handles. Let me just grab one here. Sorry, I should have got this out first. You get these embossing tools which have dual nibs, or sometimes just one, with a rounded edge. You could actually just sort of roll your paper backwards and forwards on this, just to get the skirt to sort of bend in slightly to give it a more 3D look. But I'm just showing you with a pencil for today, just so that you don't feel you have to have that. So you can see I've rolled the skirt over to be able to get a nice shape to it. I'm going to just do the little nose of the rabbit going downwards, so that it feels as though she's sort of looking over her shoulder, and the head back slightly. And then the basket, I feel I would like to have a little bit of body. So if I'm just rolling it over my pencil like this, you can see I can curve it quite nicely, as opposed to that which is flat. So I'm going to do 2 of them curved, because I'm not sure that I'm going to use both of them. I might, and we'll see. The little bows, I'm just going to curve the tips of the bow downwards, and I'm just going to curl the tails of the ribbon. I think what I like about this is it's actually a nice sort of one evening project. You know, you'll be done. You probably need, if you're working on your own at home, about an hour or so to be able to do this from start to finish. And so it's doable, whereas with quite a lot of other projects you actually need a lot of time to be able to do that. Just bending the neck down slightly, and I just want to roll this over the pencil just to give that sort of more 3D look of the head. Right, so now I have all my components in place. I'm going to start by layering the hat. So you would need to just position this on top of your rabbit face, just to make sure that you've got everything lying in the correct positions, and you can see that it's going to fit underneath the umbrella. You don't want to find that suddenly the hat sticks out above it. So I'm going to take my little glue dots, and they come on a strip. They look like little silicone balls, and this is the box of them that I got, and I think I picked them up at Poundland, you know, and very reasonably priced. So you could either use them as a dot like that, but I want to have a little bit more height when I'm working. So I'm just taking the glue dot off in my hand, and I'm rolling it around into a ball, and then I'm going to just split this. So I'm going to put a little bit under each of the points where I feel that the card might lift up somewhat, because you don't suddenly want to have a big gaping spot. Put one in the corners here where the ears and things are. And the beauty of these little sort of silicone dots is that when you place them down, if you feel that your design is still sitting too high, you can just press down on the dots and it will flatten them out sideways, as opposed to a glue. Now in South Africa we did use a silicone glue which came in a tube with a nice fine nozzle, especially packaged for dimensional decoupage like this. But I haven't seen that available here, but in fairness I haven't really looked for it. Or you could actually use those little foam squares which are sticky on both sides, and you can cut those down. Those actually work quite well. Right, so let's take this first one, and we're going to superimpose that as accurately as we can over the image that's underneath already. Oh, doesn't she look sweet? Eh? Really sweet. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to tackle is working on the bow, and I think I'm probably only going to use one little bow like that, and because the ribbon tails curl downwards, I'm just going to stick a little dot on either side of the end of the bow itself. So we're getting along nicely here. Right, so that goes on there like that, and this is a pretty non-messy way to work if anybody doesn't like to get their fingers dirty, which I know happens to quite a lot of people. I'm going to stick a dot of the silicone over here, and then I'm going to get 2 more little bits to go over the leaves, and this is for the little rose on her hat. Like there. Oopsie. Sometimes we need more hands than we've got, don't we? Right, let's put that there. Let's see, we can always add another one if need be. Put that on there. That looks great. Right, so the next thing we've got is the basket with the little chick that can go inside. This one is considerably bigger than the one that is in the actual basket. And then we've also got the skirt. So I tried the male rabbit first, and I ran into some problems with the actual design covering over the hand of the little rabbit. So I was working over here and the little pantaloons came right over the hand, and it looked as though his hands was in his trousers. Very odd. So I'll just show you, I'll just insert that little video now so you can see what I've done, and then I'll come back to this one. So during the course of assembling the second one, I came across a bit of a problem in terms of how the design would look when it was finished. So I've got everything stuck down on this one, but I came to doing the little pantaloons, and you can see if I had to take this design straight as it was and just position it so that it overlapped the legs, that it would look as though the hand was stuck inside the trousers, which I just felt looked a little bit weird for my liking. So what I've done is I have lined up the design on the edge of the base card, and just by lifting it up ever so slightly, if I do it this way, you won't really be able to see what I'm doing, but I'm actually just going to use my pencil line to follow these lines which are underneath here, and I hope you get the idea of what I'm doing. So I've done a little trace line like that. It's very vague, but I have traced this little outline on here, and I hope you can see that. And so I'm going to just quickly cut this out. Very, very random. But I think it's going to look a little bit better than if it was looking as though the little rabbit's arm was stuck inside the pantaloons with the stems of the plants going past. If it doesn't look right when I've cut it, I will just leave it off. It's as simple as that, but it was something that I felt would probably bother me. So yeah, let's just do this last little bit. So as I've done with the other pieces, I'm going to ink this with my antique linen. Yeah, so if I had to put the pantaloons like that now, I'm much actually happier with that. So let me just grab my distress ink and let me just ink the edges where I've cut, because you can see here is where I've inked them. This isn't, so it's got quite a white edge, and the antique linen is just this lovely soft color, so it's not going to be too dominant. Let me just get in as best I can into these little corners. Oopsie, oh, I need to pull that thread off. Right, so I'm going to do exactly the same as I've done with the others. I'm going to grab one of my glue dots and peel it off, roll it into a little ball, and then let me just first of all see how this lies, whether I want to shape the card a bit. No, I think just with it being raised it'll be okay. I'm just going to curl the ends of the card on either side just slightly inwards so that it lies better on the base plate when I've done it, or the base card. So I'm going to need a couple of glue dots for this. I like to roll these into balls. I just find I can break them into smaller pieces as I need them. So wherever you feel that the card might lift naturally, you're going to want to put a little bit of your glue dot down. I'm just going to go all the way around. You can use a glaze to coat these with. You could use something like a royal coat, which is a decoupage glaze like that, which gives a slight dimension. Or you could use something like a deco varnish of some sort. This particular one is a hard varnish. You get varnishes in matte and gloss, so you could take your pick. But for today's one, I'm just going to leave it unvarnished, because if it's going to be a card rather than a picture, it probably doesn't need the glaze as much. So just making sure I've got enough to support it. And just one more over here. Right, and then I'll be able to press this so that the little pantaloons overlap the edge of the legs like that. And I can secure those down so you can see that just by having that in place, it looks more or less as though it's meant to be. And yes, I think I'm much happier with that than with the little hand stuck in. Now, it did come with an extra little arm, and it was a duplicate one for this, but I just feel if I had to add a second layer of an arm there, it's actually going to be a little bit much. But I'm very happy with this little guy. I think he's come out really nicely, and it's actually quite a nice way to have an introduction into three-dimensional decoupage. So that is the one finished, and I will just clear the decks of the second one, get that started, and I'll show you. You can see what I did in that one, how I actually remedied that. And I think what I'm going to do here is something that's pretty similar. So for this one, which is a little bit easier to work out the design, because I've got a second piece over it, I'm actually going to take the handle with my pencil and trace that down so I can make a little slit, and then I'm going to just trace around the outside edge of this basket, and I'm going to cut away this little bit and the handle, so that will come out as a separate little piece to go over there. I may or may not need it, but let's just see how we go. And I'm going to cut on the inside of the line so that I don't have the basket gaping. Just going to wiggle through this like that, and then I will ink these edges as well. So for now I'm just going to leave that little bit attached in case I need it, so that I don't lose it while I'm working. Let's ink this edge up and see how we're doing. Yep, that looks good. By cutting this away, I'm able to keep the integrity of the design nicely. Yes, I'm happy with that. Very happy with that. So I'm going to use some little glue dots just to stick this down. I'm going to put one over there. It's quite funny because these are sticky, but they're not sticky as in make your fingers a really big mess. They're just sticky, which is good. And it does allow you to reposition things, which means that this is very forgiving. So we used to take sheets of wrapping paper and cut those out quite often in South Africa, because for a long time we had sanctions and we weren't able to get some of these lovely things. And then there was somebody who was really addicted to this 3D decoupage, and she started producing a range of designs with all the instructions, and they were really fantastic, because somebody who had a real interest in doing this on a sort of more professional scale would be able to pick up one of her designs and carry on. Right, so let's position this over what we have already, making sure that we just lift up the tails of the bow so that lies on top. Yep. I'm actually not going to worry with that little piece at the back, because I just feel it's going to be too much. So the next thing I want to see here is how this all lies together. Yep, I'm going to stick my little chick down. So let's get this one nice and secure. In fact, I think I'm just going to elongate this a little bit so that that actually lies across the base and holds it in place. And I'm going to just simply stick it on the outside of the basket that's already there, because I will have another one covering it. I'm going to make these ones into sausage lengths so that I can get a longer piece for the top, because I don't want the little chick's head to pop out. Let's tear that off for now. I don't know if any of you have ever tried doing 3D decoupage. If you have, let me know whether you enjoyed it and what sort of designs you've done. I do quite a lot of different kinds of videos, make journals, do general crafts, I do product reviews. I've got a really good understanding of glues and paints and things, so I'm probably going to do a lot more of those reviews, just simply because I feel I've got the knowledge to share with you guys. Because I had an art and craft shop back home, and it was one of the things that I needed to know was how we could do various things with particular products that we had. So now when I come to lay this on the other one, I need it to overlap where the skirt is, like that, so that the skirt is lying behind the basket. And I'm really happy with how that's turned. Would I want another layer for the basket? Shall we try it and just see? I'll just put a couple of little dots on and we can just have a look and see what it looks like. So these ones I'm just going to do very loosely. Just 4 little dots for this one. That last one off. I think the basket would probably do well with this extra layer. Yeah, that's really nice. So I do have an extra rose. I'm choosing not to use that. I do have an extra bow. I'm choosing not to use that. And that's the cutaway from the skirt. So if we have a look at our 2 little cards together, I'm really pleased with how they've come out. And you can certainly see the dimension because all the design is raised from the base card. It looks as though you're looking into the little basket. I could actually here, because it's gaping, put another little bit of silicone glue just to keep that top layer closed. But there we go. 2 very nice little designs out of Daphne's diary. Thank you for joining me, and please give me a thumbs up if you like this and consider subscribing to my channel. Bye for now. So if you're looking for this design that I've done, you'll find it on page 18 of the latest Daphne's diary, which is number 2 of 2024, the Easter edition.